Welcome to the Jeremy Mullins podcast, where we take a deep dive into different educational topics. I'm Jeremy, your host, registered dietitian, strength coach. I am here this evening with two guests, my co-host, producer of the podcast, Mr. Jeffrey Reno.
Going on.
And then back in the house tonight is Mr. Brenton Abshire.
Hello.
Awesome. We are continuing our series out of the FM-22, moving on to our second domain, which is going to be sleep readiness. This has been also kind of started at, solo in the nutrition aspect, and then, moved into the nutrition with Abshire. And then tonight we have Reno on. And this has been fun. It's been neat, like reading it for probably the third time now. I think that I went through the entire book, but also as I read it, I think of things that come to mind. And what's been neat with having Abshire on Reno is he picks some different aspects to even the nutrition that I'm not thinking about. And, it's been good just to have those conversations and hopefully bring a little bit of background and I guess what I like to call gray area when it comes to wellness inside of absolutes, right? Because a lot of times when we read books, we read literature, or we listen to podcasts, whatever the case may be, people a lot of times take things as absolutes, right? Because I read this and it said this, and they expect it to be exactly that way. But what we've learned there is a lot of gray area. Each person is different. What works for one person might not work for the next.
Yeah, I think it's where I would say academia might fail, a lot of the students, just in the fact of they get lost in studies. And so studies are the absolute. And study was done this, study was this, and then it turns into books and whatnot. So it's good to have like-minded people like you guys, other healthcare professionals, on to hear those variables that can occur.
Full disclosure, I'm not a healthcare professional. However, I have some opinions.
What's your undergrad in?
Kinesiology, well, health promotions and
That would make you
physical education.
That would make you a healthcare. What's your master's going to be in?
Executive leadership. Well, it used to be psychology, but now it's going to be executive leadership.
Oh, we changed.
We changed.
Yeah.
It's a little odd now.
He's doing
Health and wellness professional.
Well, we joked on the last one. He's like, "What's your title?" I was like, "Just coach." Just very simplistic.
The PE teacher.
What I was getting at is academia is great. However, academia for everybody is not set in stone. It's a very gray line, and depending on who's doing the research or who's doing the messaging can really dictate if it's a true or false or even an unknown at that point. And I think it's very, very different.
I think one of my best instructors and professors was Dr. Shepard from Marshall University, because he had his hand in both. So he was a director of the exercise phys program at Marshall, but he also created and owned at the time, which was the HIT centers, and I think that was probably one of the hands down the best lecturers I ever had was him, because I think he was in both worlds. Like he did what worked in the real world that made him, money, right? And I'm not saying it's all about the money, but you open a business to provide a service, to create jobs, to earn a living, right? And I think when you have the capability to work in the real world, for lack of better terms, and academia, that makes the best educator or professor, in my opinion. So
just the best advice I've ever received is, or maybe a statement of, you can break the rules when you learn them. And it goes, I think it crosses over all the categories, whatever you're working in. Like in film, you're allowed to break certain foundational rules when you know how it works. So same thing with nutrition and all this various things. Now, sometimes there's absolutes, but you're allowed to cheat in certain areas because you know that cheating isn't going to hurt you. But if you don't know the foundation, like learning it in a classroom, then, it's hard. It's going to take you longer to learn where you can cheat and where you can't.
I like the term gray area better than cheating, though. Okay.
I'm glad we're on the same page there.
I know, like gray area.
I guess
gray area.
Healthcare professionals.
Yes, the healthcare professionals say gray area. The media guys like cheating. You got cheating on the graph. All right. Sorry, listeners. We are going down a rabbit hole, but let's get into sleep readiness. The brain is the only organ or body part that actually requires sleep. Sleep is crucial for tissue repair, hormonal synthesis, to maintain peak performance mentally and physically. Sleep sustains brain, physical health, cognitive, and the immune function, or the immune system, and recovery after physical activity. This chapter provides tools and techniques for leaders and individuals exercising sleep readiness, tactics, techniques, and procedures for a range of occupations and operational environments. And what I have highlighted there was pretty cool is brain is the only organ that actually requires sleep, which is pretty cool.
Is it weird that it like requires sleep, but it's the most active thing that's like going on while you're sleeping?
That's a very good point. That's how it recovers, right? The other takeaway, for individuals, especially on like their wellness journey, you're not building muscle inside the gym, you're breaking it down. So your recovery comes in the outside, it comes in the other 23 hours, not just the hour in the gym. So sleep to me is probably one of the lowest hanging fruit when it comes to improving wellness. And we get into, the benefits from it here lately. If people could take a quote supplement, sleep supplement, it would be the best selling supplement on the market.
I think that's a very true statement, and I think that it's becoming more popular at this point. Like it's starting to, I believe, and it may just be because we're in the realm and that's what we're coaching.
Yeah.
But I think that society is finally picking up on sleep is needed.
Yeah. I think in our realm and our culture, we're seeing it because we teach it a lot. We implement it, and there's times that we don't get sleep. I mean, Reno, you were saying this before the call, like it's been a rough couple of weeks for you, for sleep, and there's times that we don't get as much. I mean, we're having the conversation earlier. Brenton has a early flight out, and I'm like, do I sleep in? Do I just get on the road? When he leaves in the morning, like, what do I do? And I think it all depends on what time we wrap up tonight, what time we get to bed, and how much sleep that we're getting. But also, I was looking at this when talking about supplements. Caffeine is the largest utilized supplement on the market.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that has to do with the last couple of decades of people not getting sleep and masking that with caffeine consumption. So I think that, that's a combination of why we have people who do a lot of caffeine is they're masking, not getting enough sleep. But hands down, optimal sleep is probably one of the best things that someone can do to improve their wellness, decrease body fat, get stronger.
I mean, I think it's a fair statement. And I mean, supplements aside, if everyone optimally slept good, I wouldn't even say great, just good, we could probably get rid of caffeinated supplementation. Like honestly. And in this chapter, we're going to talk military specific. Sleep isn't always a thought about need when it comes to warfighters in theory. However, this chapter is going to kind of break that down and say, hey, actually, we should be thinking about it, right?
I think caffeine then becomes urogenic aid only.
Yes.
You'd be using it only to increase performance in endurance sports or power sports. You wouldn't be consuming it on a habitual basis to make up for the lack of sleep. Very good point. Moving on. Principles of sleep. There are 3 basic interrelated principles of sleep health: sleep duration, sleep timing, and sleep continuation. Of these, sleep duration is paramount because the health and function of the brain is the primary direct function of the amount of sleep obtained. The more sleep obtained, the better. So go back to that. More sleep obtained, the better. Because I think what happens is a lot of people get a good night's rest and they feel, oh, I'm tired, I'm sluggish. That generally comes because you are in sleep depth. So therefore you think that, oh, I got all this sleep, I don't feel as good. Maybe I don't sleep this much. What happens there is when you make up for that sleep, and you can make up for short-term sleep deprivation, you cannot make up for long-term sleep deprivation. So I think that's where a lot of people get you can't, you feel worse when you do get a good night's rest.
Yes. Well, and I think that I know we'll get to it later in the chapter, but I think that just because we say long sleep schedules doesn't necessarily always mean the best.
Yes.
We'll get there.
Sleep timing is critical because of the brain's internal clock strongly influences the ability to initiate and maintain sleep, as well as maximize the amount of sleep we obtain. The extent to which sleep is undisrupted by arousals or awakenings in the sleep continuation is important because it influences both the duration and depth of your sleep. So I think that's kind of what you're going with. It's about the duration and getting into what we'll talk about later, REM and deep sleep, not just how long you were asleep. Sorry, misplaced where I was going there. With the deeper sleep being more restorative. Ultimately, promotion of sleep health in operational environments entails optimizing each soldier's sleep duration, timing, and continuous sleep to the greatest extent possible, giving existing mission constraints. So we'll move out mission constraints there to, civilians, everyday people, like, hey, what's going on in your life, whether it be kids' school, whether it be your work, that type of stuff. Are you traveling for work? All that would go into the quote unquote, environment. So let's start first with sleep duration. Cognitive ability and readiness vary as direct function of the amount of sleep obtained. I'm going to say that again. Cognitive ability and readiness vary as a direct function of the amount of sleep that you get. Less sleep, less cognitive ability. Period.
And I think that if we're talking athletics or tactical populations, we can do maybe one night of limited sleep, right?
Yes,
but long term, you're going to have effects that are going to detriment you in whatever your occupation is, whether it be athletics or really any occupation at that point.
Especially if you're going into that test, you're going into that physical event, you're going into that interview, going into whatever event that we're talking about with getting good sleep, and then you miss sleep one night before it, you're probably going to be okay because you weren't carrying that sleep deprivation in. Versus Reno, just going into right now, you're going through a phase you haven't been sleeping that good. So if you had a test tomorrow or you had a physical event that you had to do, you're probably not going to score as well versus getting good sleep leading up to the event, no matter how much you get tonight.
Yeah. I mean, I can relate it directly into my work now. It's computer intensive. It's way more. It's not labor intensive. It's just focus. And my focus is all over just, not getting great sleep. And it's backed up. It's not just me seeing it. It's the Garmin is like, hey, you're being stupid.
So the more sleep a soldier gets or anyone gets, the greater the mental acuity with faster response times, fewer errors, and fewer lapses in attention. And you can see why that's so important in our military is, once again, faster response times, fewer errors, fewer lapses in attention, very important. Also improvements in judgment, problem solving, situation awareness, mood, resiliency, general well-being, and to name a few, but those are some benefits, okay? So once again, are you moody or are you just lacking sleep, ladies and gents? And you probably, for the listener, you probably notice this in yourself, when you don't get sleep towards the end of the week, maybe you're tired, maybe you're a little bit more cranky, maybe things set you off a little bit, quote, easier than when you're getting sleep.
I mean, it goes back to just being irritable, maybe having some additional anxiety that you wouldn't have, or even being in a depression piece. Like, if we're looking at it that way, like here in our society, especially in America, if you're listening and you live in America, we have a huge depression and anxiety piece to where we're I wouldn't even say over medicated at this point, but we have a lot of stressors that we're not able to function with. And a lot of it, if we really look at it, is probably going back to sleep.
100%.
However, most people don't look at it as a sleep problem. They look at it as an anxiety or depression problem. But if we can
chicken or the egg, right? Which
one comes first?
Which one's come first? What's the cause of that?
Poor sleep and overdosing caffeine and medication is never a great help.
Yeah, so moving on, it's a question that we get in general a lot from our wellness, but also in the book. Soldiers and leaders frequently ask, what is the minimum amount of sleep needed to maintain military effectiveness? There is no clear threshold amount of sleep below, which is effective to compromise and which is above to be effective. But most soldiers are 7 to 9 hours of sleep every 24 hours to maximize health and sustainability. That's something that I've recommended, 7 to 9 hours. That's what the data is. Some people can get by a little bit less. Some people get a little bit more, right? And we'll touch on this a little bit later if it's not in the chapter. I can't remember if it does percentages on REM or deep. But what's really more important than 7 to 9 hours is that you're getting that percentage of that, theoretically, if you got 9 hours, 8 hours, roughly 20, 25% of that is deep in REM, right? So that's more important, you start to look at the quality of your sleep than the duration. So if you are in a phase of life that, hey, 5.5, 6.5 hours is all the sleep you're going to get, then you really want to work on these sleep hygiene techniques that we're going to get to later, maximize that quality of sleep to maximize the benefit. Moving on to sleep timing. Human beings are designed to be awake during the daytime and asleep during the nighttime. A portion of the brain serves as an internal clock. What is this called, gentlemen?
That is called
circadian rhythm.
Boom. What'd you say, Reno? Sorry?
I think I already said it first.
We're going to give it to you because you're the non-healthcare professional.
Yeah, circadian rhythm.
I'm on a health and wellness podcast. I'm a healthcare professional.
So, portion of the brain serves as an internal clock, sensitive to the timing of sunrise in the morning and sunset in the evening. I mean, that's how we're supposed to sleep. Largely controls the sleep and wake cycles. The sensitivity keeps the brain's clock synchronized with the outside world. During the hours that the brain clock has learned are the local daytime hours, the brain produces output that facilitates activity and wakefulness. During those hours, the brain's clock has learned what are the nighttime hours and signals the brain's deactivation, plus promoting sleep. But unfortunately, we live in a world where like there's lights on at all times, right? Like technically speaking, right now, we should be winding down, going to bed. But this is quote a second job for us. And here we are usually in the evenings or, during lunch hours that we're knocking these podcasts out. So that's just something that I want people to understand is that is how we're wired. That's the reason a lot of times when the time changes, you the sleep pattern and you don't sleep as well, right? During those times. Okay. The other thing we'll get to later is this is why it's so important not to have necessarily like screen time and lights on at night or TV on at night in your room, because your body wants it to be dark before you can go to sleep. People who work at night might be less productive and less well rested since they work when their brains promote sleep. And then they try to sleep when their brains are promoting wakefulness. Likewise, this is what causes jet lag. After rapidly crossing multiple time zones, the brain's internal clock is initially out of sync and the local day cycles are messing up, sending out signals to promote sleep during the daylight hours and sending out signals at night to be awake. So I'm sure anyone has traveled West Coast to East Coast or our opposite has had that effect.
Well, even taking yesterday, we traveled to New Orleans and we both gained an hour in theory, but we went to bed around 9 o'clock last night, which was really 10 o'clock. And I mean, I woke up at 5:30 this time, which was 6:30 normal time or Eastern time. And that's just normally when I wake up is in between 6:30, and I still woke up at the same time, even though we went to bed in theory earlier.
And I think, a couple takeaways out of the circadian rhythm is, in an ideal world, you would be winding down when the sun goes down and getting up when the sun goes up. And I know that doesn't work with everyone's schedule, but another thing to look at that is minimize artificial light once it gets dark. Okay. So turn down the lights, make things dimmer, that type of stuff to get ready for bed. And then also get sunlight first thing in the morning. Right. So, no matter what time you're getting up, try to get some natural sunlight, as soon as possible. That kind of helps with that circadian rhythm, in overall process and overall health. Continuing on with the reading, maintaining a constant sleep-wake cycle on both duty and non-duty days have been beneficial of strengthening and enforcing the internal wake and sleep promoting processes controlled by the brain's clock. These processes constitute the circadian rhythm. There we go.
Good job, Reno.
Yeah, good job, Reno. Individuals who maintain the constant sleep-wake schedules derive the maximum benefit from the circadian rhythm. Therefore, have alertness during the day, and then, of course, falling asleep faster at night.
I'm gonna pause you real quick. And so, even though this says during the duty day, I think this for the population of possibly your listeners here, we're talking Monday through Friday or the weekends.
Yeah.
Even though the weekends, you may not be waking up early or going to bed early or vice versa, you may not be having a normal work schedule. Monday through Sunday, you still want to try to go to bed at the same time and wake up the same time.
And what we promote there is roughly 60 to 90 minutes. So as I'm touched on earlier, you can make up a little bit of sleep deprivation and some of the negative things that come with that, especially the aging aspect to lack of sleep. So, if during the week you're 10:30 and you're up at 4, just throwing some numbers out there, right? Then on the weekend, you may get up at 5:30, right? So you're still getting up early, you're just backing up that hour and a half. But where people get in trouble, and it's just like having the jet lag once again, is, you're 10 to 4:30 during the week, and then all of a sudden you sleep in to 10, 11 o'clock on Saturday, Sunday, and you stay up later. So then all of a sudden Monday morning rolls around, the clock goes off, alarm goes off at 4 a.m., and you're right back into that, messing up your cycle. So you do want to keep your going to bed and your wake time around the same time. In an ideal world, it's at the exact same time every night and every morning, but I know that's not ideal, right? If we were working with professional athletes and they could make their schedule, that would be what I would promote, right? Whoa. We do have we have a pro golfer on. We'll learn that. Yeah.
Professional.
I had no idea it was a professional golfer. He actually turned pro at one time.
Gotta have that profile.
Hey, yeah, man. So,
well, and I think that a caveat to that, especially coming from working with a lot of collegiate and high school athletes, is every game may not be the same time though.
So that's
So it's never going to be a perfect world, even for professional athletes, especially right now. Let's take, for instance, right now we got the college football uh, playoffs currently. They're playing at random times right now.
yeah.
That is not a normal. They're playing on Thursdays, Fridays, Saturdays, Sunday. Then you take the NFL, same thing. They're playing last week. They were playing Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. That is not a normal schedule for them. So their schedule was completely out of whack. And I guarantee if we track their sleep, they weren't optimal during those games because of it was completely different. And that goes for everyone. No schedule is ever going to be perfect for a long term period. It's just you do the best you can.
Okay.
Yeah,
So
so
one thing-
Whoop is actually a presenting sponsor like the PGA Tour, and they give every time you're like on the tour, the 125 people, 150 people, they get a Whoop band, and the data they have because the tour is crazy. You'll travel Monday through Friday, and it's constant travel. You're never home. Their data is scary. Like I'm surprised there's not more like cardiac arrest events with how much like low sleep they get, and like you have to go walk a golf course for 10, 11 hours in a day.
Well, and let's use that for example. If you're playing a weekend, we're talking Thursday through Sunday. If you make the cut, and
Right.
you may have a 6:30 tee time.
Oh, they'll. I mean, yeah, you could have a six. So usually, if you tee off early one day, the next day you tee off late. So you'll have a 6:30, 7 a.m. tee time, and then a 3 p.m. tee time next day. Your sleep is terrible, and you're eating bad food, hotel food, Airbnb, eating out, traveling. You're in a new time zone every 4 days. Like, it's crazy.
Speaking of Whoop, we'll put it into show notes if anyone's interested in it. They can get, I think it's either a free month or $50 off the link that we do have. I'm a fan of it for at least a year. This is my take now on Whoop. I've enjoyed it. I've kept it, but I've had it for, I want to say 6 years now. And I've kind of learned my body of what to do and what not to do when it comes to recovery, through Whoop. Now it's kind of cool. It almost, I can know it's really good at telling me when I'm going to get sick. Like if I wake up and it's not, from doing an Ironman or some crazy race and I'm 1% on recovery, then I know that I'm getting sick. Like that's just the reality of it. But I think Whoop is awesome to have for 1 year to learn yourself. Just like, I talk all the time about tracking your nutrition. I think you should track for a year and then you don't have to track 365 days a year after that. But tracking for a year, you learn a lot. Okay. Same thing with the Whoop. I think everybody should at least do it for a year. And then after that, it's one of those things because it is a membership and it's kind of like, is it worth it? That's really up to you what you do for a living, that type of stuff. So I would encourage people to do it for a year. And then after that, make the decision whether it's worth having the quote unquote membership to it or not. And that would be up to the individual.
Well, and I think depending on where you are in your journey too, I think that's a great motivational factor to help you just one up yourself, right? Like if you're early on in your journey, maybe it's not needed now because you're still trying to create those habits. However, if you're in the middle tier or you are in the beginning or you're at the tail end and you're getting unmotivated, you need some data. It's a great source to help you prolong your journey.
Well, I mean, I've learned it for myself with having an alcohol drink. Like if I have, one or two drinks that are early in the evening, versus like a nightcap for lack of better terms, like, it's the last thing I do for the night. There's a totally different in my sleep.
Yep.
Right. And I've also noticed, on the rare occasions that I have multiple drinks, like it impacts my sleep a lot. Right. But I can have, a glass of bourbon with dinner or before dinner as I'm fixing dinner on the grill, whatever the case is, and then still get optimal sleep that night, still be in the green the next day. Take that same amount of alcohol, that one drink, move it to a nightcap, and I do not. Right. So that's where like you can learn, about your body, how things adjust. So I think it's pretty cool. And, you bringing that up as an example on the tour. I think it's one of the tour was one of the first big sports that they got into. I know they're in other sports now, and there's a lot of other, the Aura Ring, those type of things that's out there that's kind of got into some other sports too. But I think monitoring it is important. So.
Yep, 100%.
All right, sliding back into it, why maintaining his sleep is so good. So when you get good sleep, you release a lot of hormones. So you have hormonal release, digestion, muscle strength, cardiovascular performance, all that is going to be improved. Cardiac rhythm acts as tandem with the need to sleep, which is built through a day. These rhythms optimize the process of falling asleep, staying asleep, and ensure quality of sleep. However, the soldiers can achieve such benefits if they get adequate sleep on a regular basis. If they get less sleep, for example, 6 hours per night during the duty week, and sleep debt occurs, in such cases, it is better to sleep in on the off-duty days and pay down the sleep debt rather than sacrifice trying to maintain a constant sleep-wake schedule and strengthen the circadian rhythm alerts. So that's what we're talking about right there is like you still get the benefit of your circadian rhythm if you can stay within that hour or so.
Yep.
Right. But nothing wrong if you're just put in a situation where you only get like 3 hours of sleep, multiple nights in a row, then I would recommend if you can get 12 hours of sleep, then get 12 hours of sleep. Catch up, from that sleep debt that you've got for those fewer days. But, if we're just talking about an hour each way, that is still getting the benefit of paying the sleep down plus helping with the circadian rhythm.
And I think that we're talking in this instance schedule wise, right? We're talking very specific. Your schedule doesn't allow you to have the proper 7 to 9 hours. You're required to maybe work 12, 13, 14 plus hours of the day. So this could be some changing. And then on the weekend, maybe you don't work at all. So this isn't a forever fix. This is a short-term fix for possibly a long-term problem.
Yeah. And not being able to get 7 hours of sleep is not because you chose to stay up and play Call of Duty or stay up and surf, Instagram. Fortnite, yeah, whatever you're doing, right? That's I want people to understand that, right? You have to have enough self-awareness and self-accountability and discipline to know whether it's circumstantial or you're choosing not to get the sleep. Although the circadian rhythm and alertness generally promotes a 24-hour cycle of daytime wakeness and nighttime, there is a temporary afternoon dip in alertness. So this is something, because a lot of people will say, well, Jim, I get a little bit tired in the afternoon. This is normal, okay? So if you're getting a little bit tired in the afternoon, just make sure that maybe you're not over-consuming lunch, make sure you're not over-consuming caffeine early in the day and it's kind of wearing off, that type of stuff. But it is natural to have a small dip in your energy in the afternoon, okay? Go for a walk, right? Maybe eat some protein, based snacks, something like that. But don't think that that is abnormal or something's wrong with your routine if you do have a little bit of a dip in the afternoon. All right, continuous sleep. A restorative value of sleep is determined not only by the duration of the sleep period, but also by the continuous of the sleep period. And that's what we talked about earlier. The quality of sleep matters just as much, if not more, than the amount of sleep that you get. The sleeping brain cycles through non-rapid eye movement, known as REM or non-REM, and rapid eye movement, known as REM or dreaming sleep, every 90 to 20 minutes. The full benefit of sleep occurs when the brain completes 4 to 5 cycles of the sleep cycles. Non-rapid eye movement makes up most of the first half of the night's sleep. During this type of sleep, the brain releases hormones that help repair and rebuild muscle and replenish energy. So think testosterone, growth hormone. You're going to produce those hormones at night. And that's why sleep is so important for muscle building and muscle recovery. The 3 stages of non-rapid eye movement: stage 1, the lightest stage of sleep; 2, which occurs for approximately 50% of the nighttime sleep, or stage 2; and stage 3, which is the deepest, the most recovery or recruited sleep stage. During the sleep, the body clears toxins that have accumulated throughout the day and as byproducts of healthy brain function from the brain. This is why a lot of times if you don't get sleep, you feel like, for lack of better terms, hungover or maybe still drunk, brain fog the next day.
Yep.
Those are generally some acronyms or some ways that people explain it. It also fixes and transforms new memories into useful knowledge. So if you've been struggling, God love our moms out there, right? And our moms are wives, so like we call it baby brain.
Yep.
Like when you and your wife may be going through that, your baby's sleeping good, right? Last time, yeah?
Yep.
Yeah, summer sleep.
We take sleep very seriously at our household.
But brings a new daddy. Well, she's
6 months old now. So yeah.
But I used to joke with Katie, like when our baby wasn't sleeping, like it's mom brain for real, right? Like when they don't get sleep, they can't remember, they ask multiple questions. Like we talked about this, and it's just lack of sleep that is causing, those issues. So both types of sleep are essential, and it is important that the brain cycles appropriate between non-rapid eye movement and rapid eye movement sleep across the night. When sleep is interrupted or shortened, the natural progression of sleep cycles are disturbed, therefore, reducing the benefits of the sleep. So you want to stay asleep, you want to go through the cycles, and then once again, we get that roughly 20-ish% of REM and deep sleep. Deep sleep is where you're going to physically recover, tissues, that type. The REM sleep is where you're going to mentally recover.
Yep. And I think that, just statistically speaking, when we're in sleep deprivation, typically it's the REM sleep that becomes malnourished in theory,
Yes.
right? And that's where a lot of it brought up a good point there is it didn't say it, but the way that I think about this is it's your memory bank. Your
Yeah.
memory bank. When you're able to remember things, it gets stored in your brain. And the only way for that to become a memory in theory is whenever you hit the rapid eye movement or the REM sleep, where, like you said, if you've had an intensive workout, you don't necessarily need your brain to recover at that point.
Right.
You didn't overwork your brain that way. You overworked your muscles, you broke it down, and now you need the muscles to recover. But however, you still need both
Yes.
in theory.
I get 4 minutes of deep sleep if anyone's counting.
That is why you look tired. You need to get
Unless you do Chad, and then I got an hour and a half.
Yeah, I don't listen. And I got a Garmin. I love Garmin. I have, a Garmin watch. I have a GPS, on my bikes. That's a Garmin. I have a Garmin trainer for my bike. So, Garmin, if you're listening, I love you guys. This is not a spite, but I do like Whoop for tracking sleep better than my Garmin. I think
Garmin would agree with you. I don't know if they're fighting to be the sleep
Yeah.
data tracker.
Yeah, no, and maybe the newer models, because I think my Garmin, watch is 7-8 years old, so maybe I need to upgrade it and get some better numbers, on some of the newer models. But that's just, once again, this is Jeremy's opinion, on it. So next part, guys, we got about 10 more minutes. So if you're out walking, and you need to walk a little bit more, continue walking. But I'm gonna get into the point where hopefully we can scare you with the negatives of not getting enough sleep into making sleep an important priority in your wellness journey. Okay.
I think we could say let's make sleep fun again.
Ooh, make sleep great again?
Or make sleep great again, maybe. That could be the new slogan.
Make sleep great again. Like the rest of the body, for example, muscle, skin, liver, the brain has physiological needs for food, water, and oxygen. Basic needs that must be met not only to ensure proper brain function, but to sustain life itself. However, unlike the rest of the body, the brain has one additional physiological need: sleep. The brain requires sleep to maintain normal function. So we kind of talked about this earlier going into it. We got to have sleep for the brain. The brain needs sleep to restore and repair itself, to work more efficiently, to fix new memories, to process new information appropriately. Sleep also clears away waste products from normally breakdown of chemicals that accumulate in the brain during wakefulness. And if you start looking at some of the data, like people who do not get sleep age faster, right? So, and once again, I'm not going to be like, hey, if you sleep, it's going to prevent you from developing any diseases or any health issues. No, but I can tell you, if you don't get a lot of sleep, you will cause your body to age faster. Prioritizing sleep and ensuring the opportunities for a soldier to sleep at maximize lengths in an operational environment serves to optimize the brain, physiological, psychological, and immune health. In particular, sleeping properly before training improves attention, understanding, and learning. Sleeping properly after training improves the ability to both remember and appropriate utilize newly acquired skills and information. Although some soldiers may require a little more, a little less sleep, for the vast majority of the soldiers, a steady diet, using the word diet in our sleep, of 7 to 8 hours of sleep every 24 hours is needed to sustain normal levels of brain function and health performance. Most soldiers are regularly obtain less than 7 to 8 hours sleep every 24 hours, pay a price. Okay. They unwillingly or but steadily accrue a significant sleep debt characterized by increasing suboptimal alertness, reduced mental sharpness, and impaired ability to recover from stress. These soldiers typically believe they are fine and may perform most basic duties adequately from objective standpoint. Their alertness, their mental acuity, everything is okay, but they are impaired. As a rule of thumb, any soldier who sleeps 2 or more hours longer on days off versus duty days carry a significant sleep debt. So kind of like that too. And I don't remember that being when the first time I read through that, 2 or more hours. So it kind of goes what we were saying with kind of our rule of thumb. Yeah, go for extra hour, 90 minutes to help. But if you're going for over the 2 hours, that is where, okay, hey, that's, I don't want to say it's an issue, but you're paying back a lot of sleep debt there. One couple more things, and then we'll kind of cover all this that I'm going through. Even for those who regularly obtain general recommendations, 7 to 8 hours of sleep per night, more on the sleep can result in better alertness, more sleep can result in a better alertness and mental acuity, brain health, and mental function. There is no such thing as too much sleep. Therefore, maximize brain health and function in operational environments. Soldiers aim to maximize sleep as much as possible. Insufficiencies in sleep. So here's where we have the decrease in the brain's functions. A reduced ability to concentrate, impaired judgment, problem solving, and decision making is reduced. Increased irritability and reduced mood. Reduction of motivation level. Increased reaction time, increased reaction time and slowed response time. It would be opposite, right? A reduced reaction time. What's this typo? It's typo.
I mean, I think we can agree that lack thereof, or insufficient sleep is what we're using as the title here.
Yeah.
That you're going to reduce your decision ability to make the decisions in a fast piece.
Reduce ability to effectively cope with stress, increase risk of physical injury, and increase time to recover from a injury itself.
And I think those last two, I mean, and that's where I've really, probably the last 2 years, really been honing in on with a lot of my clients and athletes is they're all college athletes. And typically when you're in college, sleep isn't an important thing because you're 18, 19, 20, 21. You can get away with not sleeping. But if you're looking to optimally perform, which is what they used verbiage for here, cognitively and even physically, sleep's an important thing. And that's where I think that, again, making sleep fun again has been a benefit for a lot of my clients, athletes, and even in the chapter, we're talking about preventing injuries, and that's where a lot of these people find their livelihood. Is if they're injured, they're not able to make money anymore, and this goes for a lot of tactical athletes or college athletes in general now, especially with NIL deals. Is if they're not able to perform, they're losing quote unquote income at that point. So keeping them on the playing field or court or whatever they're doing, or even a golf course, like we mentioned earlier, is very critical. And sleep is playing a huge role. Or on the vice versa, with that last one, they're injured. In order to recover, the only way we can do that is through deep sleep. It's the only way we can recover. And the easiest analogy that I conversate with my clients and athletes is think about it as your phone. Once your phone hits 20%, what's it do?
Slows down.
Well, it slows down, but there's a notification, right?
It goes into like low battery performance.
It goes into low battery mode, and then it hits 10%, and you get another notification. It's like, oh crap! And typically, what's everybody do? You find the nearest charger, and that's the only way that we can do with sleep is when you are replenished and you're injured, you have to recover and you have to charge yourself in, and the only way you can do that is by getting deep sleep.
Yeah, and we'll kind of end this, and we'll get into sleep hygiene, the things that you can do that can improve it. Because I mean, it gets down here in this last chapter that I want to cover. If the brain is starved for sleep long enough, it'll eventually fall asleep. Severe sleepiness proves more dangerous when individuals engage in monostructural activities such as driving, pulling security, which is more military related, or monitoring equipment or computer screens, right? When you're just doing the same thing over and over. And that's the reason a lot of people fall asleep while they're driving, right? Because, at a certain point, the brain's just going to shut down. You're going to go to sleep, right? So that, then we're talking about dangers that, and I don't know the numbers. I'm sure we could, look the numbers up of how many fatalities come from, people falling asleep at the wheel. But that's where your body will eventually shut down, right? And you will fall asleep from the lack of sleep.
Well, and we talked about it earlier, depending on if you're working night shift, third shift, or just not a normal 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. shift, something along those lines. Healthcare workers, for instance, working night shift, working 12, 13, 14 hours, their drive home, they're typically dozing in and out just because of that circadian rhythm. It's trying to put them to sleep, and they're not able to when they're trying to focus out of that.
And remember, because a lot of my people listen our wellness space, and you're trying to, once again, recover from your workouts or drop some body fat, which are stressors on the body, so you're increasing your risk of physical injury and you're decreasing your recovery time when you don't sleep. Okay. Hope you guys enjoyed the session today. Hope you guys have a great week or great weekend, no matter when this one drops. Appreciate you guys listening, and we'll talk to you next episode on more sleep.
See you.